Karina Hemmer. Karina Hemmer. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
I'll be back. I'm running to the restroom.
Okay, Trey. Great. Yeah.
You want me to stick around?
Yeah, if you want to, it'd be great. We're going to talk about
Travis, what's your last name?
Kimball.
Travis Kimball. Yeah. And tell me your name. Bowman Johnson. And what's your company? Event Hub.
Yeah, I'm not in here. I'm just getting it go right now.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, okay, I think we'll get started. I think we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, we're ready.
So funny. I was just going to ask you about this when I saw it pop up.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm Spencer Rogers. I am one of the mentors here, co-director with Corbin. And today we're going to talk about some legal and ethical issues. This is kind of a common sense conversation a little bit, but it's stuff that we really need to make sure that we're aware of as we're launching our business, because these are issues that if you're not dealing with them today, you're definitely going to deal with them at some point in the process. And so the idea here is to get your mind thinking about what some of these issues are. So if you were to go to Google and Google like legal and ethical issues, you're going to see a lot of stuff that looks like this screen, where there's arrows pointing this way or this way, almost suggesting that it's either ethical or it's legal, but it can't be both or whatever, or illegal or whatever. Which direction is it? And it's not a black and white kind of a conversation, right? A lot of these issues are a matter of your personal opinion or a matter of your value set or whatever. So what I want to do today is just spend a minute and get your mind thinking about some of these issues that you might face, because ultimately, the sooner you make some decisions about how you're going to react in these circumstances, the better. I was taught when I was little, if I make a decision that I'm never going to smoke, if I'm ever faced with that decision, I've already made the decision, right? If I'm ever faced with the option, I can just say, no, I'm not going to smoke. I don't have to think about it and decide at that moment. And so some things like that are easy. Some things are very hard. And I'm going to give you some examples, and we're actually going to do a couple of case studies. We'll talk about a couple of case studies here. So here are some examples of some of these. They aren't on one side of the screen or another for a reason. They're all just just consider this one big list. Okay, but how do you feel about overworking salaried employees? So, Eddie says, boo. So, here's the scenario. You've got an employee that is hourly, and they've started working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and they're reporting those hours. And so you sit down with your management team and you say, you know what, let's just move him to salary, because then we don't have to pay him for that overtime. Is that an ethical thing to do? Unethical thing to do? Is it legal? Is it illegal? These are the kinds of things that we're going to talk about today. Here's another one. What about upselling the vulnerable? So many people in our community have done door-to-door sales, right? So is it ethical? Is it unethical to upsell somebody that's in a vulnerable position? You got him, let's upsell him. Padding your numbers. You call an accountant, pretty much any accountant, and you say, hey, what do my numbers look like? And the accountant's going to say, well, what do you want the numbers to look like, right? There's a million different ways I can move the numbers around. Well, most of that, I would hope, is totally legal and within the bounds of what's acceptable. Some of it probably may not be. And so you have to make a decision today about what's okay with you, and we're going to actually do a case study about that very issue just to kind of drill this home. What about letting somebody go? Is there a scenario where that could be illegal? Is there a scenario where that could be unethical? Is your obligation to your employee or is your obligation to your business? We were talking about a manager at my restaurant I had to sit down with my manager the other day and tell her that I was going to reduce her pay. And that was a hard conversation. I felt like I have an obligation, though, to my business, right? So it was hard. Was it ethical? Yeah, I think it was ethical. I'd been having this conversation with her. It wasn't a surprise. But these are the kinds of things that we need to think through. How about this scenario? Travis and I shake hands that we're going to do a deal, and then Trey comes along and offers me a better deal. And I don't have a contract with Travis. I haven't signed anything. Do I look out after my family and my business and bail on my handshake agreement with Travis and go with Trey? Where, do I do what's going to be best for my business in the short term and my family? Or do I bail on my verbal agreement? These are the kinds of issues we're dealing with. How about copying a competitor? I tell people all the time, find somebody that's doing it and do it exactly the way they're doing it, right? They've already proven it out.
Even better, go work for them first.
Go work for them first. Don't steal their IP,
No.
right?
Yeah, but just
So how about reducing your product size? You're selling the big box, but there's only a little bit of stuff in it because you want to convey that there's more there. Is that an ethical thing to do?
What about charging people more for triple colored soap?
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
I could say that
Yeah.
looks like a uniform.
Yeah. So where are these boundaries? What about charging hidden fees? There was a pandemic in Utah a few years ago of these subscription models where a pop-up would show up on your screen and it was some little Utah company, well, big Utah company maybe, selling like a, some kind of a herbal supplement or something. And you buy one, and what you don't know is in the fine print, they're going to charge your credit card every single month in perpetuity. And it's a pain in the rear to cancel that subscription.
It's those things that show up after you buy tickets from Ticketmaster. You have these offers now that you've bought this. You have these.
You have these
You
offers.
have to click through, and almost all of them are monthly.
Monthly subscriptions. But they're not going to tell
They
you
don't
that.
tell you that.
Yeah. Good. So, sorry. And I'll make these slides available to everybody. So these are some of the types of considerations, right? Okay, so here's some things that you need to think about that are elements to these legal and ethical considerations. So intellectual property, business structure, equity, contracts, labor laws, regulatory compliance, data privacy. I got a lot of these, so I'll go through them fairly quickly. Consumer protection. What's that?
I turned on.
That's true.
Oh, let's see. What do we do? Hey, Eddie. What do I need to do here? Let's see. Oh, that's not it. Yeah. Technical difficulties.
so quick when I think of a car wash owner, I think of Walter White.
Yeah.
We'll get this back up here.
It only happens when you're presenting. A little bit when Todd presents.
I'm still connected according to this, so
Yeah, the Apple TV's still good. It's just this.
it's just the TV that turned off. All right. So I'll just go through these, a couple of others to think about: conflicts of interest, environmental issues. I was on the board once of a nonprofit, and we had this really generous donor approach us. We were looking to build a new campus, and we were looking for a 13-acre piece of land. And this donor calls us up and says, I've got 13 acres in Morgan Hill, California, south of Silicon Valley. Commercial value of that was about $1 million an acre. And he says, I'm willing to donate this entire piece of land to you. And we're like, wow, that's amazing. Well, come to find out, there's all kinds of environmental impact issues with this piece of land. And he wasn't able to sell it. And so he just wanted to hand the problem off to us, you know? We wouldn't have been able to build on it or do anything. And so, you know, there are those kinds of issues.
Connected to the Apple TV or to the TV itself?
I was connected to the Apple TV. I'm not connected now. So what should I connect to? iHub 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're back. So, you know, just kind of oversight and governance issues and transparency issues. So this is just a handful of the legal issues that we need to be thinking about when we're starting a business. One of the biggest reasons that businesses fail, in my opinion, is at least when you have co-founders, is because of conflicts between the founders. We've dealt with that right here on the floor. We had a company where, in fact, within the last few months, we've had a couple of companies where the founders have kind of been at odds with each other, and that can just ruin a business. And so you need to think about those things before you embrace bringing a founder on board. Make sure you're on the same page, at least from a values perspective. One of our case studies is going to go, in fact, this first case study, we're going to talk about that too. So, okay, here's a scenario. A company's developed an app for managing small hotels. Okay. And they're preparing to pitch to investors. Okay. The company has 10,000 downloads of their app, but they only have 1,200 active users. The founder knows that the investors pay close attention to growth, right? What do you think the investors want to see? They want to see 10,000 downloads, right? So to make the startup look more attractive, the founder considers reporting 10,000 users instead of clearly stating that they only have 1,200 active users. While this is technically true, it may lead investors to believe that all 10,000 users actively use the product. So as the founder, you may say to yourself, hey, these investors are big boys. If they misinterpret, that's their problem, you know? I'm just gonna paint as rosy a picture as I can, okay? So here's a question you should ask yourself. Well, we'll get to that. So the co-founder argues that this is misleading and unethical, but the founder believes it's just normal startup marketing, okay? So here's some questions for you. Is the founder being dishonest? What do you think?
The founder's being stupid.
He's being
Because if
stupid.
they're smart enough to have money to be an investor, you know there's a difference between downloads and active users.
Okay. You think he's being stupid? You think he's being strategic by painting the picture to look more rosy than not rosy? Why?
No, disappointment is way worse, right? When these people find out the real, that's way worse than if the number was just low from the beginning and then you exceeded it.
Love that answer. Imagine you're entering into a partnership with those investors. Do you really want your investors to mistrust you from the very beginning? You know, not a good scenario. So what obligations do the entrepreneurs have to the investors to develop the trust? Be honest with them. You know, wouldn't it be better to under-promise and over-deliver, you know, instead of the opposite? So could this create a legal risk for the founders? Do you think that the investors might have cause to be able to sue the founder or to come after the founder for misleading them? Maybe. Yeah. You know, so how might this decision affect the company long term? Think about the conflict between the founders. Now, you've got one who wants to present it one way and another one who wants to present it the other. How's that going to affect their relationship moving forward? Could be dicey. So
Another thing too is that person may think he's being strategic, but like ultimately at the core it's dishonest. And I think like a lot of us, we tend to, you know, with these euphemisms, we tend to, it's human nature, right?
it's human nature.
To even deceive yourself.
Yeah.
When you replace it with all these euphemisms.
Yeah.
When you get down to it, it's dishonest.
Yeah. Have you read we've brought this up a million times, but if you haven't read Nail It, Then Scale It, you need to do it. But there's a phrase in there that they use in almost every chapter. and it's being brutally honest or being, okay, you bet, being intellectually honest. So we need to be brutally honest with ourselves. And if we're comfortable misleading our investor, what does that say potentially about us? Yeah, you're misleading yourself, exactly. And so we really need to be willing to be brutally honest with ourselves about what we're saying. And from experience, if you're not honest with yourself about your business, all you're doing is hurting yourself, right? It's like calling, where does this come up? What's the example? It's like calling to get a loan. So you call a loan officer, and the loan officer says, great, well, let's go through some preliminary questions to see if you're going to qualify for the loan, right? Well, what's the point of lying to that loan officer, right? You can mislead the loan officer. Yeah, I have great credit. I don't have any debt, whatever. And the loan officer says, okay, great, you qualify. But when they do their due diligence, they're going to find out you have debt. You don't have great credit. You just wasted everybody's time. So just be honest up front. It saves everybody a headache. So what alternative ways could the founder present the data honestly but still persuasively? So what could he have done to still be strategic?
2 points on time at least.
What's that?
Use time, right? What was the download?
Yeah.
How many users did they have when and versus now?
Yeah. Isn't this amazing? We had 10,000 downloads. We currently have 1,200 active users. We're looking into a strategy to up that number. We're trying to find out what happened to the other 800 of them, or whatever, right?
The story.
Find the story.
What is the industry average, right? Maybe the industry average is worse.
Absolutely. Yeah. So maybe those numbers are amazing if they look into it. But this is the kind of thinking or thought process that we want to go through when we're thinking about these ethical considerations. Okay, here's another one that's a little bit maybe not as heavy. Okay, you develop an AI tool that can automate much of the work done by your company's support team. Implementing the tool would improve profitability, but require laying off several early employees who helped build the company. That's the scenario. So what are you going to do? So here's some questions to ask yourself. Do you prioritize the company's growth or loyalty to your early employees? Hard question, right? What would you do, Trey?
Well, I've had to do this already.
Okay.
Last week, when I decided to do the abundant education thing, I envisioned it as a traditional company. I found a guy that wanted to be the CTO. I thought, we can do this. But even this week, I thought, you know what, once this is up and running, this is going to be a one-man operation for 100 different people or 1,000 different people. So let's just start out that way. Let's start out as a solopreneur and then make it a business opportunity for other solopreneurs versus building up a structure and realizing now that AI has advanced so much that we're going to have to split it up and lay off all the people to help build it.
Yeah. Okay. What would you do? You have 25 people that started with you or whatever, been with you for years.
I'll maybe start by saying I worked 11 years in HR.
You worked 11 years in HR.
Deeply on this topic.
You just went through this actually, didn't you?
Kind of.
Yeah.
So, I think my first question would be, looking to the future, what are the needs of the company? Do you have a role related to AI that somebody who knows, technical support people know your business, how your product actually works better than almost anybody. Is there some way to pivot them into another position that is both going to help your company grow and keep them in the position? We have such a static, when we become these operators, we have such a static view of people and their jobs. Put them in their bucket and then the world moves and it's like, well, get you out and bring somebody else in. But we lose the value, we forget the value that they have of knowing our business really well.
Yeah.
And is it really actually a better business choice to get the person out of the business that knows it that well and bring in somebody net new with a specific skill set, or teach that person the skill set?
Yeah.
I don't think it's always that easy of an answer. So that's where I typically go, is the HR. Can you retrain this person?
So you would say, I want to be loyal to the employees. Can I find a different place for them?
Well,
Can I retrain them?
It's investing in them too. It's not just go figure it out. But is there some AI program I can put
Yeah.
them through? And then you give them a choice. These are your choices. That you don't need this job anymore, but here's a potential path for you. If you don't want the job, here's X months of severance. You do, this is what it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens if the answer, after you go through all of that analysis and you say, well, what can I retrain them? What if the answer is, you know what, I just don't have anywhere else to put them? So at the end of the day, you're faced with this dilemma. Do you implement AI and let them go, or do you keep them?
You implement the AI. People don't want to be in a job where they feel useless. But you treat them like this is a big miss a lot of companies have is the severance. Like here, 2 weeks, bye. Like, does that really feel good
Yeah,
as a business to do that sort of thing? If you can really give somebody something really meaningful in that moment, everybody feels more human.
yeah. If you haven't listened to it, listen to How I Built This, the episode with Hamdi Ulukaya, the founder of Chobani, Greek yogurt. His story is amazing. He's super fun to listen to. But when he started Chobani, he actually did it by acquiring an existing factory that I think had been used to make cream cheese. But the factory had been shut down, and the employees, and essentially it was the largest employer, I think, in the town in upstate New York. And so what Hamdi did was he went in and he invited those employees to come in, and he told them what he was going to do and invited them to join his team and to stay with him. And he makes the comment in that episode that, you know, his people are his most valuable asset. He's the guy who, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago, he gave $1 million bonus to every employee in his company, I think. Yeah, amazing. But it was difficult times, but he knew these people understood the factory, and he did what you were suggesting, and he trained them on his processes, and I think changed their lives and really probably saved that town.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
I'm not teaching this class. I just feel like a lot of times you get stuck in these either ors.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when it comes to people, there's much more nuance there, and it's easier to just say these are my only two options.
Right.
But it's often false. Like that's actually not typically real. But we tell ourselves that because then it just feels like an easier choice.
Yeah.
But really, it's often not true.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say you're asking the wrong question, basically. Like the fact that you're framing it like already shows that like, and I know you're doing this, but if a person really had that, like they're viewing their employees, like they're viewing them as static labor and stuff, and it's just like it's much more nuanced than that.
It is. It's much more nuanced. But you have to know that there are going to be times where you're going to have to face an either or scenario, right? And it may be super stupid and simple. I mean, I'll give you an example. I told my wife I'd be home at 5 o'clock for dinner. And at 10 to 5, my phone rang, and it was my most important client who was asking me a bunch of questions, and I stayed on the phone with them. Do I hang up the phone in 2 minutes and say, hey, I told my wife I'd be home at 5, so sorry, you know? And I mean, I'm either gonna, and I'm on the phone. It's not like I can call my wife and tell her, hey, I'm not gonna be there. Or maybe I hang up with him and call my wife and then I call him back, but that would make him mad. I mean, you know, there are gonna be times where you're faced with these decisions. And so it's important for you to understand what you value, what's important to you, you know, and make sure that you have a true north, if you will, and that you're constantly working towards that. And if you deviate from it, then you deviate, but at least recognize that you've deviated and come back to what your true north is. So I love where you went with the initial comment, because your initial comment really illustrated well that it's not just an either or scenario. Most of the time, there's a workaround and you can accommodate both. Let me give you an example. Well, yeah.
Well, I was just going to suggest that employee is a dead end right now in the age of AI. So when we build new enterprises, we need to structure them with no employees, because eventually the employee, no matter what they do, is going to get beat out by AI. So I
Yeah,
really think
potentially.
we're moving toward a world of no which is why I call my thing an enterprise always, never
A company. Do you feel, I'm going to ask Travis this question because you've got a bunch of employees at Quick Quack, right? So do you feel, what is your obligation to your employee versus your obligation to your company? And, and is there a difference? Is it a black and white?
Um, it's gotten more complicated recently because we rolled out an employee ownership program. So now all of our employees have potential, at least, to own part of Quick Quack. So that makes it challenging if you're talking about downsizing because of AI, because now it's not really their performance; it's that they're not needed.
Yeah.
So, we've been fortunate so far because there was one of the things that we chose to do differently than a lot of our competitors is they stuck up pay stations, and so, but then they found out that people still wanted human interaction. They weren't comfortable, just using basically an ATM to process their transaction. So then they all had to man the pay stations with a person. So we skipped that, but we did our license plate recognition technology, and so where before we would have the need of 2 or 3 cashiers if we have 2 or 3 lanes, now we don't. We only need 1 cashier, and the other lanes, read the license plates and go. So we aren't hiring as many people as we used to. But I mean, overall, we have and this goes back to the ethical, legal responsibility. We have a ethical obligation to our shareholders, our investors, right? And so, at the end of the day, we have a responsibility to make the company more profitable. And so, if there's truly a task that can be done by a person or by AI, then it's our responsibility to choose that solution.
Yeah. Great answer.
So
Yeah.
I shared this with Travis when we both went to the restroom. I drove all the way across the U.S. to a car wash in Florida because they make a point of hiring autistic employees, and my wife at the time wanted to do a business based on that model. Well, that's kind of an exception to the rule that AI is going to take all the jobs, but if you do have to have employees that are special, that are really suited to the role, that can't and shouldn't be replaced by AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
This one's like really, really hard for me because I was commissioned. So a large foundation reached out to me and got a grant from New York State and the federal government as well as other large entities. And I was commissioned to draft up a social safety net for these economically depressed areas that have been completely obliterated in upstate New York and in the Rust Belt areas, right? Because top of industrialization and all of these towns in upstate New York have completely been obliterated and stuff, And so you wonder what the obligations are. And I saw the long-term effects of all of these towns completely decimated and all of these people left unemployed, people unable to pivot and stuff, completely reliant on public funds and stuff. And so I'm just trying to figure out and that's why we created a lot of our model was affected by this lens that I developed and stuff, trying to make these jobs sustainable so that we always tell people we do not want our jobs to be the end goal. Please, we want to give you guys these skills to be able to springboard into other places. And so I'm just I'm still thinking this out loud, but I think the obligation should start before you even get to that point. The obligation is making sure that your employees can pivot when, not if, but when they become obsolete.
Yeah. Yeah, and go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's totally fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a call center in Orem, a contact center, and AI is quickly going to be displacing a lot of those folks. And so we're having those conversations with them now.
Yeah.
Like, look, it's going to take a little while, but there will be large portions of your job that will be done by AI. So we're talking to them about what what that means for them and what they can do and where they should pivot. And so yeah, I think there is especially if you care for your team as you should. Yeah, there's an obligation to help them with that, not blindside them completely with it. So that's a fair point.
Yeah, so it's Sarah, right? I want to go back to what Sarah said and to what Travis said, because those two things are really important to keep in mind. So what Sarah said was it's not always black and white, right? It's not always an either or. There you can navigate through it potentially. What Travis said is also really important, though. You have to remember where your legal obligations lie and where your fiduciary obligations lie.
That's right.
You have obligations. If you have shareholders and investors and what have you, you have legal obligations to them, and you can be held accountable for not, for violating those legal obligations.
I'll give you a good example, and it still hurts me to talk about. But we're five co-founders, all LDS. Started this car wash company, closed on Sundays, and tried 2 3 years. We're 3 years in, not profitable, and finally we just the industry actually we had several mentors in the industry that said you guys are crazy, it'll never work. We're like, well, look at Chick-fil-A,
Yeah.
we're like, we can do this, but it wasn't working. And so, I mean, we were getting to the point where we're either going to have to shut down the company or open on Sundays. And there was a point where I'm like, well, I'm not, if we're going to open on Sundays, I'm not interested in doing this business. It's just kind of took that kind of moral point. And my partners kind of talked me off the ledge and said, look, if it was your choice, that's great. This isn't your choice. The choice is made for us. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our investors to not lose their money, and so we're going to open on Sundays. And it was still very, very hard, but at the end of the day, you, it's a dramatic example, but our investors probably would have been okay maybe losing that money, but maybe they wouldn't have been. Maybe we would have forced somebody to lose their home, and how is that better or worse?
Yeah.
Not black or white.
No, it's a great example, and we had to cross that exact bridge when we bought this little restaurant, right? So our daughter calls us, says, "Hey, buy the restaurant." So it's a franchise. So we call the franchisor, and we say we're interested in buying the restaurant, and they say, "Great, we only have two rules: you can't add anything to the menu, and you have to be open every day." And I said, "No, we're not going to be open on Sunday." And they were like, well, "Sorry, then you can't buy the store." And we said, "Fine, we won't buy the store then." And they're like, "Whoa, wait, And so we're the only store in the whole system that's not open on Sunday. I have no obligation. I don't have a board, or I don't have investors, right? My obligation is to me and to my wife. So we were in the fortunate position of being able to say, we're going to stand true to this. But if we had had investors, yeah, we would have been under the same pressure. We have a obligation to those investors. And unless the investors are on board with it, we're probably going to be stuck opening on Sunday.
So this is anecdotal, but 9 years ago when I joined the church, the sister missionaries taught me the reason we don't do things on Sunday is we don't want to force other people to work. So I will take my car to the self-serve yourself car wash on Sundays.
That's
my
funny.
wife objects to it. She won't do that.
That's funny.
But lately I swing it for the $11 for the cheapest.
Yeah.
But she still has it.
Okay, I want to go back to one other thing. Oh, did you have a question? Yep.
Yeah, no, just more so just a comment, because I've been able to interview quite a few people, and Chris Cooper at Pelion, he's like, the most successful people aren't going to be the smartest, they're not going to be the hardest working, they're going to be the people who are able to be most agile. So kind of with, like, under this like ethical and legal concern, I mean, it's like a super hard situation. Obviously, it isn't black or white, but if the business goes out of business, you're not helping anyone.
Yeah.
Right? And at the same time, like, these companies that fall behind, that don't implement this, are going to get crushed by the ones who do. Like, you look at, and this isn't necessarily like AI, but you look at Polaroid, and like way back when, like they didn't pivot like the digital camera because of that.
Yeah.
Out of business
They struggled.
for a while. And so it's a really hard moral moral dilemma, but at the end of the day, you have obligations to family, your company,
Yeah.
but also individuals. So.
Yeah. So, you know, develop a North Star for yourself. Make sure you know what you value most. Make sure you know where your legal and fiduciary obligations lie, and then use that as your compass. And then do what Sarah suggested and navigate every scenario based on its individual circumstances. And, you know, hopefully you'll be able to navigate those things successfully and not have to deviate from your true north.
Can I ask you a question that
Yeah.
my company is actually dealing with right now that has to do with this?
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking to do some last mile delivery infrastructure improvements in countries that don't have very good infrastructure to help with package delivery. And one of the things that we're running into is that in order to do business, you have to have in a bank account $500,000 of capital just to show the government
In that country. So you'd have to go like to Kenya and put $500,000 in the bank.
Yeah, you don't need
Okay.
to give it to the government or anything. They
Yeah.
just want to see proof of capital. Or in Ghana, it's 500. In Kenya, it's 100. And all the people we've talked to are like ways around it. Like you don't need to follow that. So technically, it's illegal, but everyone doesn't heed by those rules. And even business attorneys are like, yeah, it's fine, but then it's still legal. And so that's kind of what we're.
Come on, man. Everybody does it.
I know, but it's even the people enforcing these rules know that everyone does it and they're okay.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of this moral dilemma we're
Yeah.
trying to figure out, because it'd be really easy to just bribe someone to sign a paper, but when all these companies are doing it, I talked to a handful of people from Ghana and Kenya, even people here at the iHub. They're like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, type thing. And we, from the start, my co-founder and I, we said, established the values, and we said we are going to make choices that sometimes will hurt us as a business, but at the end of the day, it will be the right thing. So this is the difference of us stopping, period, and us going forward. And so we're just consulting attorneys, doing all that stuff, trying to figure out what to do. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.
Do you have
on
to be in those countries?
Not necessarily, but these countries have the best opportunity.
And
But
the world is full of opportunities. I would steer into an opportunity where you don't have
I mean,
compromise
all
your
of these
values.
countries that you go to that are foreign, they're gonna have something like it. Because in the Philippines, it says 40% of the company needs to be owned by a Filipino.
Yeah.
In Kenya, they've done this thing where at any time they can put it into place where you have to shut down if 50% of the company isn't owned by a Kenyan. And we've asked these questions, and the government's like, it's fine. Or these attorneys and people that have done business in these companies are like, it's fine.
Can you teach a Kenyan to operate a similar company and then get a royalty or something that way instead of actually operating yourself?
At that point, it just becomes probably too much of a logistical hassle to do that.
What do you think, Sarah?
So I'm confused. Don't you have to set up an individual entity in that country? So there's your parent company,
Yeah.
and then your Kenya entity. Wouldn't it be that Kenya entity that needs 40% or whatever?
It's a good question. Actually, I don't really know.
I think you am I off on that? So I've worked for a lot of multinational companies, and typically you have separate entities for the countries.
But where's the money going to come from?
Well, I think that is another whole other question, which is if the price of doing business in that country requires bribery from the beginning, that's not going to end just once you start.
Yeah.
So is that the way you want to do business?
That's such a great question.
And that's why we have a
That's
conversation.
exactly the right question, though.
Yeah.
'Cause,
And all I could think about was the church has had to stop voting candidates in several places because they've said no, we will not do bribes and stuff,
Yeah.
And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And they could justify
Mhm.
as saying we're bringing a temple to everybody. People need these covenants and stuff, And
Yeah, and you know what, Porter, it's you could ask 10 people and you'll get 10 different answers. And it's your business and you got to own it. And so at the end of the day, you've got to decide, what are you comfortable doing?
That's true.
And I love that question that you asked. If this is how you're starting the relationship with that company, with that country, you know, is that gonna persist? Are you just opening the door? Are there people behind the scenes saying, "Oh man, that sucker, he did what we."
There's something else though. Like, I worked at a library software company. Not very exciting. We lost so much money. There's like this idea. There's so much opportunity in China, so we started operating in China. But we didn't understand how it worked there. We lost so much money because it's just like this idea of like that is just the tip of the iceberg of like how actual stuff happens in that country. And like if you don't know that, is the opportunity even real? Like in China, for example, resume fraud is a huge problem. Like it's just an expected thing that you just put whatever the heck you want on your resume in China. And so like we would hire employees that literally didn't know any. Anyway, it's just I actually really love China, so no, China. Like I've been.
But your point is, because you didn't know how to operate in China, you lost a lot of money.
I think the point is that it can look like a great opportunity, but like it is.
Is it
operating in
really?
These places is very different. And
Yeah.
if there's just a bribe just to get in the door, are people going to behave in ways that you know how to engage with so you actually make money?
Yeah, these are good questions.
Yeah, and the reason we've even gotten to this point where we're exploring like actually doing this is because like validation and all of that has been so crazy. Like the largest e-commerce player in all of Africa, like is wanting to make a deal with us right now. So we're talking with we're going to. This is just yesterday that we've explored this, but we're gonna get in contact with their legal team and see what they could do.
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't have like painkiller level validation for this idea, like, we wouldn't have gone forward with it. And this is another one of the things where it's like reinventing the wheel, or not reinventing the wheel, just putting it somewhere else.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we're going through. So I honestly wasn't necessarily looking for a set answer, but I'd love to hear your guys' comments on it because it's difficult. You know, maybe there's like some legal workaround that it's completely integritous because that's what we value most. But if not, then I'm sure there'll be some.
Yeah, these are the questions that we need to be asking. Okay, let me give you one other example just to kind of bring it home with another really simple kind of ethical dilemma example. Just curious how you'll respond. And then I want to tell you a story. Did I tell you guys about the orange, about negotiating the orange? No? Okay, I'll tell you about negotiating an orange because it addresses a point that Sarah made. Okay, so here's the ethical dilemma. You need to hang up your Christmas lights and you need a ladder to get on your roof and you don't have a ladder. So you go to Home Depot and you buy a ladder. And you come home and you hang up your Christmas lights and everything's great, right? And your wife in the meantime, you know, you hang them up because you want to surprise your wife, right? So your wife in the meantime is out visiting her dad and dad says, hey, I've got this extra ladder. Why don't I give it to you guys? And your wife thinks to herself, oh, that's great because we don't have a ladder. My husband's got to hang up the Christmas lights. So she brings the ladder home, okay? So now you got two ladders. So do you take the first one back
Home Depot?
to Home Depot?
Absolutely.
You say absolutely.
It's Home Depot's brand.
It's Home Depot's brand.
Yeah.
Okay,
Surely they'll take it. They'll take anything back.
they'll take anything back. So same with Costco, right? It's their brand. Yeah.
So I actually had this like same conversation with my dad over Christmas break.
Really?
Similar because it's slightly different. You'll see why. So my brother and I loved to play video games together, like way back in the day. So to kind of like reminisce and relive that a little bit, like okay, we can just go. Or there's an idea. It's like we could go just buy another Xbox from Best Buy and just return it in like a week after we're done using it. And we ended up not doing it, but I think the difference in these scenarios is if we started out with that intention to like buy the ladder, use it,
And then return it?
then I think that's wrong. But if there's like some coincidental thing, and with these companies where it is kind of their brand, like I would feel okay. But
Okay, good.
And I'm going to go in the middle on this. I'm going to say that if I can return the ladder in such great condition,
They could
nobody
resell
would
it?
ever know it was used.
Okay.
That's fine. But if I really hurt it anyway, yeah, I'm just going
That's
to
how I
keep it.
feel. I was gonna say that.
Okay. So here's the point that I want to make with this story. Yeah.
the question my dad asked me is like, if every did this, what impact did that have on the company, positive or negative?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
The company knows, though, that everyone's not going to do it.
true.
That's why they have that brand. This is the point, though. The point is the mere fact that you question the decision is the issue. Okay? If there's no question in your mind, if you just automatically feel like, hey, I know that's their brand, I'm just going to return it. You know, it's their brand, right? Who cares? Or I'm going to buy 2 pairs of pants because I don't know exactly which one fits me, and I'm going to return one of them. No question. It's just, it's the brand, right? But the fact that you question it is what should give you pause. And then you should ask yourself, why am I questioning that? Is there something about that that shouldn't sit right with me, right? There was a situation where this actually happened. It wasn't my situation, but, and the husband was so troubled by the notion of taking it back to Home Depot to return it. And so he called his neighbor, who happens to be an ethics professor at a university. That's what he does. He teaches ethics at the university. What do you think the professor said?
Your intent was fine.
Yeah, the professor said, well, the fact that you're questioning this is the problem. So what are your choices, right? And this speaks to the point that you were making. It's not a black and white issue. Maybe there's an in-between. So you know what the guy did? He went back to Home Depot with the ladder, and he was just totally upfront with the person and said exactly what had happened. I bought it, I used it, I fully intended to keep it. My wife brought one home, so I'm returning it. What do you think the teller said? Okay. Didn't even ask a question, right? But when he walked out of that store, how do you think he felt? He felt great. If he had gone back and returned it, questioning whether or not it was okay, he probably would have had the secret pain in his side forever about that thing, you know? So question those things that you're doubting, you know, and ask yourself, why am I wondering about that? Okay, really quickly. You got an orange, okay? We've got an orange, one orange. Trey wants the orange, I want the orange. We're negotiating. I really want the orange. He really wants the orange. How are we both gonna get the orange and be totally happy?
Divide it in half.
Okay, we could divide it in half. So I don't trust that Trey's gonna cut it in half properly, and I don't trust that I'm gonna cut it in half properly. So maybe one option is I cut it and Trey picks his half first, right? Any way you look at it, if that's what we do, neither of us is gonna be fully satisfied, because I only got half the orange and he only got half the orange. Even if mathematically it's exactly the half, right? So smart guy walks into the room and says, Trey, why do you want the orange? And Trey says, well, I really want some zest, and so I need the peel. And Spencer, why do you want the orange? Well, I just want to eat the meat of the orange. Great, we'll peel the orange, you get the zest, I get the meat, we're both 100% satisfied. We essentially created 2 oranges out of the one, right? So this speaks to the point that you made earlier. It's not always black and white. We need to look at all of the circumstances and understand what is it really what are my obligations, what are your obligations, and then we can strive to find a solution. That story about the orange isn't my story, but it's a really well-known story in the negotiating space. And you know, I think it applies when you start to think about ethical dilemmas, because an ethical dilemma is kind of a negotiation between, you know, the little monkey on this side that says do it and the little monkey on this side that says don't. And how do you appease both of them?
So
Yeah.
what's missing is context, though. And the context is defined by relationship. So in our pizza business that was super successful, our rule was always do exactly what the customer wants. So you ask the customer, how would you like us to resolve this? They'll say, well, I want this pizza for free, and I want 3 more pizzas for free for my trouble. Fine.
You say, okay.
That's all about the relationship. We care less about any one transaction.
Yeah, and so for you, your true north was doing what the customer wanted. And for another manager, it may have been, no, it's the bottom line. So who cares if we lose a customer? We're not gonna, you know, we're not gonna lose our shirts on the deal. So know your true north. Understand exactly what you want. Know what your zest is and what the meat of my orange is, you know, so that you can make those decisions. You guys are great. Thanks for coming today. You were very quiet. Did you have any comments or questions? Awesome.
One general question.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Appreciate your comments.
Like
So
Sarah.
one of the reasons I'm trying to go through every single class we have here now is because I want to bring other people to go through every single class that will also be part of my network.